Hammer smash. Hephaestus is making something. Ares moans.
I want my suit.
The tone is like perfect, his voice is kinda hysterical. The Annihilator draws his powers from humanity's rage, so it's perfect for the god of war.
Wrap it up.
The intro plays, and now I've gotta change my pants. Ares then exploits a general's need to protect his country's borders. He's not interested in money, but the reliability and exploitability of this conflict.
No, I trust you. It's not like you're going anywhere, is it?
While off in America, it's Diana's day off, so she's really got no patience. In fact, she's so ticked off that she almost caves a guy's face in. DCAU Wonder Woman is a very angry person.
Do I look like I'm playing games?
What are you gonna do to me?
I hit a lot harder than she does. I try to take a day off, try to have a semblance of a normal life, but you had to pick today to rob a bank.
That I'd come to care for all of you.
Who's next? Oh yeah, like that's going to work.
Wait!
I'm gonna punch a hole in your head.
We don't do that to our enemies.
Speak for yourself.
The pasta's good.
It's the sauce.
Something changing your mind.
The episode Hawk and Dove has two purposes. It's a loving introduction to two characters that were pretty obscure at the time, and it's about how violence is bad. While everything is framed around Anna's bad day, she's so irritated that she's in a blind warrior mode to stay focused. As a result, for today, she just doesn't get it.
What's wrong with people, Jean? Hostility is their answer to everything.
You're not one to talk of late.
But the only answer Jean has as a fellow outsider to humanity is to remind her that they need to keep themselves in check.
First of all, those thugs back there got exactly what they had coming. As did that band of mercenaries last week. And those creatures from the Decoran Nebula. They weren't misunderstood. They thought we were food!
Jean has to sarcastically move on. Hawk and Dove are introduced to externalize this tension inside her, to put on display her id, her basic aggressive impulses in the form of Hawk. Her superego, her ideals and morality in the form of Dove.
Just because I disagree with you doesn't make me unpatriotic.
While she herself, as the leader of this mission, is now in the middle, the executive that's mediating between the two. Anyways, there's moments where this model is quite literally put on display.
Why not just let them obliterate each other? If people can't control their own country, they don't deserve to have one.
Way to oversimplify. These folks live in poverty.
But Mr. Serra, you know how little money we have.
And when you have so little, it's easy to be swayed into blaming your neighbor.
You've got to attack now to protect your farms and your families from their vicious hands.
Almost all aggression can be cured with education.
Freud's most telling analogy of the relationship between the id and the ego is to compare it with the relationship of a horse and its rider. Occasionally, of course, a horse will slip from its rider's control, just as the instinctual demands of the id occasionally elude the restraints of the ego. But mostly the horse is guided and controlled by its rider. Diana has no time for this and directs them to the battle below.
Yeah? Then how come some of the best educated guys in the world work at the Pentagon?
Down there.
She has no interest in reviewing her thoughts, she just has a job. She's not on a journey of self-discovery, and that's generally this episode. It's not about character arc, it's about characterization, showing the tension between her instinctual drives and her principles, the anger and impatience of a diplomat warrior who can't sympathize with the never-ending ignorance of their subjects, but also the wisdom of knowing better.
What are you doing? You pulled us right out of battle!
She just saved our lives, Hank.
The ego supervises the id. The superego demands we behave in ways acceptable to morals, rather than just to our own individual urges.
My mother may not approve, but I find man's world to be intriguing. I'll gladly join.
DCAU Wonder Woman is more explicitly a rebel compared to her source material. Instead of winning the games despite her mother's wishes, but also then making her proud before being sent to fight war and evil with love and such, She stole her armor and lasso during the Imperium's invasion, and even got exiled from Themyscira when she brought outsiders to it. This intense individualism makes her pretty different from the idea that she represented Themyscira's way of thinking, Marston's way of thinking. My men shall rule with the sword. My women shall conquer men with love, where the violent impulses of man can be squashed by loving submission. But what's really fun about this version is that instead of foregoing it completely, this episode honors this message by putting it inside her instead. When they find the Annihilator, her first thought is,
You hit it till it breaks.
but then she recognizes Hephaestus' mark, retreats, and lets Dove try to stop the fighting with diplomacy. She doesn't believe it'll work, but it'll be a good distraction while she's off. The crazy thing is, Dove is totally right. The dude Ares sold the Annihilator to isn't a monster, he just wants to protect his home.
But you think like a South Kaznian. They want to destroy us all. But my brothers and I only wish to keep our land. Perhaps I could take their camp, but the price would be too great.
After he won the battle, he could have taken the enemy capital, but he didn't, which is the exact act of imperialism Ares manipulated the other side into believing would happen, and thus led to the fighting. The presumption Diana, Hawke, and Ares has when it comes to men being undeserving of empathy due to their unchanging ways is an accusation, not a truth.
Perhaps I could take their camp, but the price would be too great. Shall I win a country but massacre my people?
Yes, you idiot! I think like a South Casnian? Has it even entered your skull that they think like South Casnians? And you better start thinking that way too, if you want there to be a northerner left in this rat-infested dirt heap you call a country. All any of you mortals are good for is to slaughter one another, to fight and fight until the bones of your enemies are strewn across the battlefield, only to rise again in the next generation like a well-tended crop. That's what the Annihilator is for. But no, you're using it to play tag.
Which is willed into existence as a self-fulfilling prophecy, something which can only be broken if you break the assumption. Festus is also like a total perv.
I love your mom, but she didn't have your build. Come back when you have more time. I'll let that suit out a little.
Diana gets no answers, but she figures it out. This happens while Dove gets bamboozled in a pretty hilarious moment.
Peace.
Not really my thing.
Not really my things. So good. The other general also looks like Omni-Man. As the battle wages on, Diana tries to tell people to stop fighting and she gets whacked in the face. But as she's prepared to kill him back, she decides to break the weapon instead. Out of principles or out of strategy, she controls herself and is in harmony with Dove now. So she holds Hawke back as Dove stands up to the Annihilator. Diana stares with concern, but Dove is still. His confidence is able to convince the troops to stand down, and now the fight is over. Ares comes out streaming, demanding the fight to carry on, but both sides stare at him. He's an internal being which will always be there for man's ignorance, but so will Diana for man's nobility, even on a bad day.
Sometimes it takes more strength not to fight.
And that's what makes her unmovable. Just as there's assumptions and refusals to understand the violent urges of men, faith in their goodness also wills such goodness into existence. That's what Diana represents.
Wherever there's prejudice, ignorance, inequality, I'll be there.
And I'll be waiting.
Everyone in the DCAU Trinity has a role. Superman was the leader. He also had a temper, but he also had the biggest heart. In fact, it looked like Krypton was about to explode in his pants when he got a chance to continue helping people with the League.
Maybe we could open an embassy on Earth so we can be closer to the people.
Batman was the businessman and strategist.
I know Maxwell Lord. All he cares about is money.
Where unlike other interpretations, he's not insanely paranoid or distrustful, he's a true believer, despite his tendencies to not always be around. Wonder Woman offered a balanced voice of reason, where everyone can be defensive or petty. She gave empathetic thoughts without ego.
We're here to make the world a safer place.
I don't see the two goals as mutually exclusive. We should make a gesture of cooperation. I don't know about Lord, but I think these Ultimate have potential that should be encouraged. Especially Long Shadow.
Her big flaw, though, was her anger. Lots and lots of anger of hers. But then, the considerations and dialogue of this episode is what always runs through her mind. Every day. And every day she restrains herself and follows love.
You want me to what?
Turn yourself over into U.S. custody, along with the rest of us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Staring at the wall, I know you really love the color. We picked it out over the phone. Remember what you said, but I could never tell the meaning. I try to see what I have been shown. Staring at the pictures now, I know they try to show me. I cannot see, but God knows I try. Believer of the mysteries, I try to find a way not to cry.
So this was the DCAU Wonder Woman video. Originally it was supposed to go through her entire story from Secret Origins onwards, but then I realized there's no real point because there's no major character arc, so I thought it would be best to focus on Hawk and Dove. I might go back to that sort of complete holistic biographical approach one day, but anyways, I also was planning to do the episode The Balance too, but then Hawk and Dove actually had enough material to summarize everything I wanted to say about the character, which means Balance will be its own video, and I will probably focus it more on Shaira and Diana's relationship throughout the show. Anyways, special thanks to everyone on Patreon. You guys rule, and I've got like 5 videos I've pretty much written, so it's just a matter of making them.
Oh my God.
Give me a triple. Now.